Bill Connelly over at ESPN has a pretty interesting article talking about the college football returning production across all 136. Yes, they're now up to 136 teams in Division I college football. And what this basically does is who's coming back.
Yeah.
And when you look at the list, there's a couple of pretty intriguing ones at 1 and 2. Number one, Clemson, who is not a team with Dabo Swinney, who's been a guy who goes into the portal all that much. He is a guy that stays in the house. He is now. He has dipped his toe, as it were, in there.
Yep.
But one of the ones that you have been banging the drum on for the last month here, at the number 2 spot is Arizona State.
Yeah.
They're returning 79% of their overall production, 78% of their offense, and 79% of their defense. That ranks 4th and 2nd nationally.
I think Arizona State is returning I believe 18 starters from a year ago. Now, Cam Scadaboo leaves.
It's a big one.
Yep.
But you bring back your best wide receiver. You bring back your quarterback.
Sam Levitt. Yes, they are going, and you continue to improve that roster in a Big 12 that is winnable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Arizona State. If I am buying a stock, I will buy Arizona State stock because not only do they bring,
you might be able to buy actual stock.
Not only do I buy what they're going to be putting on the field, they didn't lose a single coach in this coaching cycle. Not a single assistant coach left. That is huge when you're bringing back so many guys and you have the same coaches getting their hooks in them and continuing to build and grow. So Arizona State, that is not a surprise to see them that high on this. Not one bit.
No. One thing that maybe will come as a surprise is where the national champion Ohio State Buckeyes fall in here. And the teams that are kind of around them in that range. Remember, 136 teams in Division I right now. Ohio State is 101st. Texas is 103rd. Georgia is 105th, and the Oregon Ducks at 109th.
Well, and you also have Ole Miss in there, too, is like 113th. I mean, those are in Miami, I think, is 75th in this. So this is just returning production. But if you take a look at the schools that Bill Connelly is saying are most likely to regress this year, those are the schools, right? You're going to see a lot of college football playoff teams in there. And here is the thing with when you have these rankings and you're losing things and you're just identifying returning production, is that's what recruiting means, right? Because remember, last year there were these same thoughts about, look, Oregon is going to have to replace Bucky Irving, Bo Nix, Troy Franklin. Those 3 pretty big guys that they had to replace last year, right? They found a way to do it. This is where, but they also had returning Jordan James, an entire offensive line, Tez Johnson, Terrence Ferguson. The reason why Oregon is so low on this is because of the fact that you lose Dylan Gabriel, 4 of your top 5 leading receivers, 2 leading rushers. Like, there's a lot of offensive production. And then on the defensive side,
offensive linemen.
Derek Harmon, Jamari Caldwell, Jeffrey Bassa. You're losing Jordan Birch. You're replacing the secondary. I mean, there's a lot that they are trying to replace. Well, I think they're still working on the Kobe Savage, but Tysheem Johnson and Brandon Johnson, you're going to be losing a lot, no doubt about it.
What's interesting about this is Bill Connelly is very, very much analytically driven. I believe he's the creator of their SP Plus at ESPN, if I remember right, their projection model, of which he has altered drastically over the past 4 years because of COVID eligibility, because of the viability and volatility of the transfer portal. I found this pretty interesting. In 2021, the national returning production averages across the country were 76.7%. The biggest part of that was COVID. COVID added a year of eligibility, and you throw the red shirt on top of that, you saw significantly less turnover. because of that extra year of eligibility. That dropped drastically from 76.7 in 21 to 62.9 the next year.
Dang.
Since then, it has gone down to 60.2 and 59.9. From 62.9 to 59.9. That's pretty stable drop. This year is going from 59.9 to 53.7. Why? COVID eligibility has run out.
Well, and the transfer portal is ramping up. It's the two things that are kind of coinciding together, is that all the extra COVID kids, they're all cycling out, and transfer portal numbers continue to rise.
They've gone from 10.7 transfers in 2023 per roster. It's up to 14.1. That's a 40% growth. That's not nothing.
Look, that's a big number.
Yeah.
That is a huge number. And look, there's another cycle that's going to happen again. Transfer portal will open up after spring ball finishes up. And all of this movement around and the returning production as it pertains to college football, the transfer portal works two ways, right? Because guys will leave, but you also bring talent in. And there's a lot that is missing from a lot of the contenders. And this is what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with the kind of the world of college, how much of an outlier Ohio State was last year, in that the guys that they had
everyone came back,
and the guys that they brought in through the transfer portal, it loaded up, man. And this year, it's gonna, if you're talking about a big regression, all of those teams that were listed, they also didn't lose a lot of games.
No.
Oregon went 13-1. Yes. The regression would be 12-2. I mean, keep things into perspective here of what this is.
And the way that Connolly is highlighting this, he says the teams that are most likely to regress: Ohio State, Ole Miss, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Miami, SMU, South Carolina.
And that does, but this is the thing: recruit well. All of those schools recruit at a ridiculously high level. Some of the highest level recruiters in the country. Also look at the retention rates of their rosters. Not a lot of guys are leaving out of the transfer portal from those rosters. Ole Miss, kind of the outlier because they just, Lane Kiffin dubs himself the portal king. They bring a lot of guys in, but all of those schools, they fill holes through their elite recruiting, being top 5, top 10 recruiters via the transfer portal. And every single year, those teams, since the portal has been around, all of them have gone in to supplement their roster with those portal guys. And Oregon is replacing Dylan Gabriel's production. They're not dipping in the portal yet for a quarterback. They're going to let spring ball play out because they think that they've got 3 guys that can compete there, 4 guys that can compete there at the quarterback position. They're going to let that play out. They could dip into the portal, come the spring transfer window as well.
But
right now,
anything can shake out over the next month and a half, whatever.
Yep.
Wasn't that portal open up?
And it ends after, I think it's April.
Yeah, so isn't it like
or
second
May,
week,
maybe May,
third week, April, something like that.
But no, it's got to be after all the spring, I think it's after the spring period, so I think it's May.
Okay.
But I mean, look.
The interesting note here,
a lot of the holes have already been filled. He's looking at returning production. You fill those through the transfer portal of bringing guys in
and lifting guys up. For me, the interesting thing here for Oregon, this is the one that stands out to me. Every defensive lineman and defensive back that saw more than 100 snaps for Oregon last year is gone.
Well,
that's a pretty sizable change, and it's not something you can't overcome. That's where you develop the depth. That's where you talk about what Lanning's recruits are going to end up being.
Bring in the top safety in the portal.
Yes.
From Purdue.
100%. And that's where it's like, it's going to be interesting to see kind of like what the models of this stuff looks like going forward when you're talking about impacts of transfers.
Like Mekhi Hughes, the nation's leading returning rusher in college football. He transferred to Oregon from Tulane. Paragon, the USC offensive lineman, Isaiah World, the lineman from Nevada. Both those guys
of the world
transfer in. The Texas State monster, whatever that they brought in. They've been busy trying to fill those holes. And Look, a lot of it is, what do you got coming back next year? There's a lot of guys that they ended up redshirting last year.
Mm-hmm.
Blake Purchase as an edge rusher played as a freshman, redshirted last year as a sophomore. Those guys are going to be pivotal for their growth moving forward.